Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So today in our class, we are going to look at the section number 4 from this very important section of how similarities in terminology conceal fundamental difference. And so far we have seen how the similarity in concepts like karma, rebirth, and ahimsa. The words look like the same, but there is a different meaning in Buddhism about of rebirth, karma, and ahimsa. So logically, we have seen that in the previous section, Baba Ambedkar has not linked karma and rebirth. In fact, he delinked the karma and rebirth. And linking the karma and rebirth has been the main sort of an argument for the rebirth theory. And by delinking karma with rebirth, Baba Ambedkar has demonstrated that these two things are separate, and then again delineating transmigration from rebirth karma is something very unusual. He could have had written the 3 chapters consecutively: rebirth, karma, and transmigration, and he could have done it, but what did he interspersed section number 3 on ahimsa in between transmigration and the chapters on rebirth and karma. I think that's deliberate, because Baba Ambedkar wanted to demonstrate that transmigration doesn't exist in Buddhism, neither rebirth, as we have seen in terms of the Brahmanical theory, is not the Buddhist doctrine. And we have seen how the karma works, how karma as an activity or an action in the world is so important and so, profound for maintaining the public order. And that has been wonderfully explained by Baba Ambedkar, as we have seen in the previous discussion. Taking rebirth, karma, from the realm of what is called a mystical, something that cannot be explained, very difficult doctrines. But if we try to bring some rational and some scientific arguments, we begin to see the clearer picture. And I think that's what is important. And therefore, this chapter, this section number 4 on transmigration in itself is an indication as to how Baba Ambedkar argued that, of course, the transmigration is not the doctrine of the Buddha. There is no being that migrates from this body to that body. There is nothing that migrates like, the theory of soul, where the soul is supposed to migrate from one body to another body. It's like discarding the cloths according to the soul theory. But as we have seen that the Buddha in his experience found that there is nothing permanent in the world. Everything is momentary. And because everything is momentarily existing, there is no continuity of what we can say that some essence which is being migrated from this to that. It's a process. And Paticca Samuppanna, the famous Buddha's teaching. So Paticca Samuppanna, if we understand it deeply, it explains everything about Buddhism and the Buddha's teachings. So this particular section number 4 is based very heavily on Milinda Prashna. So you see that Baba Ambedkar's approach to understand something in Buddhism through a very clearer pedagogical tools, which we generally find in Milinda Prashna. And I recommend all of you, if you can find the time and opportunity, to please read Milinda Prashna. It was one of the favorite books of Baba Ambedkar. Baba Ambedkar recommended Milind Prashna very earnestly, and he thought that Milind Prashna is a very interesting book to clarify because it's in the dialogue form, and we get a lot of clarity on a lot of Buddhist themes. And in an explanatory tone, the way the great monk Nagasena explains to Milinda using various metaphors and various similes and various parables and various literary and linguistic tools, the various features or various doctrines, the various teachings of the Buddha. So I recommend all of you to please go and take a chance of reading Milinda Prashna. It will be of tremendous benefit if we go and look into Milind Prashna. So you see in this Buddha and his Dhamma, Baba Ambedkar has in several times brought material from the Milind Prashna, and the various teachings of the Buddha are made very much clear in the Milind Prashna. And I thought someday we will have a chance to study it together, maybe after we finish Buddha and his Dhamma, because I think it's such a profound way of teaching the Dhamma that it's in the dialogical form, and the questions are raised and they are answered and going back and forth. So I think what's interesting for all of us is to really what am I audible to you all? Hello? Am I audible to you all?
No.
Now
there was break.
Now,
yes.
Now yes.
Yes, because the electricity has disconnected. Okay, so what I'm just trying to tell you is try to find opportunities to read the Milinda Prashna whenever you can, and I think it's a very interesting pedagogical tool for the Buddhists to understand and to teach the basic teaching, not the basic, even very profound teachings of the Buddha. And there are themes which are very interestingly explained in the Milind Prashna. And Baba Ambedkar, as I said, recommended the Milind Prashna to all of us, and he founded a college, Milind College, and he named the area around as Nagasena 1. Shows how profoundly Baba Ambedkar was influenced by the Milind Prashna, and that's why you see by way of clarification the material from the Milind Prashna is brought into here to explain certain things, and nowhere it's explained this beautifully as it is explained in Milind Prashna about the transmigration. And these sections on transmigration in the Milind Prashna are worth reading, and Baba Ambedkar has picked up two sort of analogies by which we can understand the transmigration. So there are 29 verses which I'm going to read through, and then I'm going to just when we read through, a lot of things are clarified. So let's read them through. So the section number 4, transmigration. The verse number 1, the blessed Lord preached that there was rebirth, and that's we have seen the rebirth of what and rebirth of whom, isn't it? By asking the question, we can asking the question rightly, we can get the right answer. So it's very important to ask the right questions also, isn't it? So in asking the right questions, the answers are inbuilt into this, isn't it? Because if we say what is rebirth, then it doesn't sort of it becomes very open-ended sort of a question. But if you ask rebirth of what and rebirth of whom, then the questions become very specific, and then you can go into depth of it, isn't it? So so we have seen by the way Baba Ambedkar has analyzed that there is no rebirth of soul, because there is no soul in Buddhism. There is no soul in the world. So you cannot have the rebirth of a soul, and of course there is a regeneration, there is a recycling which is going on constantly. We have seen that the same recurring things happening around us in a cyclic way. That doesn't mean that there is some kind of a fixity of a self, isn't it? So the matter is regenerated, as we have seen, isn't it? What about the consciousness? Because the consciousness is dependent on the matter, isn't it? So we know that the same kind of consciousness, can come into being or cannot come into being is indeterminate, isn't it? It's very improbable that the same elements will come together and give a new birth. And what interestingly we have seen is, because this discussion is very important when we talk about transmigration, is Baba Ambedkar has shown how the fetus comes into existence through the biological processes. If we go beyond that in the evolutionary history, the chemical processes, how they lead to, particularly the organic chemistry and the new branches of chemistry that talks about the biological process which are coming into being. They explain how the chemistry has turned into biology, and the complete evolution we can at least now begin to understand. So there is no scope for any soul, there is no soul, there is no soul, nobody has found it yet. So let's the Blessed Lord preached that there was rebirth, but the Blessed Lord also preached that there was no transmigration. There is no transmigration. Okay. Sankraman, the word for transmigration in Milind Prashna is Sankraman. Patti Sankraman. Okay. So the Buddha has denied the Sankraman or transmigration. There were not wanting people who criticize the Lord for preaching what they regarded as two such contradictory doctrines. So the people found that these are two contradictory doctrines because, on one hand, the Buddha is saying, oh yes, rebirth is possible. This is the way by which the rebirth is possible. And the Buddha is saying that there is no transmigration. These are two contradictory theories. And how do we resolve it? How can there be rebirth unless there is transmigration? Ask the critics. There is here a case of rebirth without transmigration. They said, can this be? There is no contradiction. There can be rebirth, although there is no transmigration. Now we have to understand this way of teaching. Okay, we have to understand the way the great Nagasena has explained it to Milinda. So this has been well explained by Nagasena in his reply to the questions of King Milind. Milind, king of Bactria, asked Nagasena, did the Buddha believe in rebirth, transmigration, Sankraman? His reply was yes. Now see, I think this rebirth and transmigration put this transmigration put in bracket. I think it's unnecessary there to put the transmigration in the bracket, because rebirth and transmigration, as Baba Ambedkar has shown previously, that they are contradictory. So basically, it's did the Buddha believe in rebirth? His answer was yes. Is this not a contradiction? Nagasena replied, no. Can there be rebirth without a soul? Nagasena said, of course, yes, there can be. Explain how it can be. The king said, where there is no transmigration, Nagasena, can there be rebirth? Yes, there can. But how can be? How can that be? Give me an illustration. Suppose a man, O king, were to light a lamp from another lamp. Can it be said that the one transmigrates from or to the other? Certainly not. Just so, great king, is rebirth without transmigration. This example of one lamp lighting the another lamp has been spoken throughout, and we have been making this argument for a long time that it's like this, that the one lamp lightens the another lamp, and that has been our standard answer or the standard way of explaining how the rebirth is possible without soul. But I think what we can do now, we can go back into the scientific domain, and we can see that how the rebirth can be explained in terms of the science as well, because like this life causing that life. Isn't it? The parents causing the other life. At the level of, if we go to the level of DNA, when the parents transfer their DNA to their offsprings, it is not the same and not the different. Not same, not different is such a beautiful way of explaining the change and the seeming consistency that we see in the change, isn't it? So even if from the childhood to whatever age I am at the moment, am I the same or different? Who am I? A lot of things undergo change. The body changes, altogether. The mind is never stationary. It's permanent. All our sense organs are impermanent. Our experiences are all impermanent. They change all the time. So what is it that remains unchanged? What is it that, am I the same or different? So this question of same and different can be explained very beautifully on the level of science, that, even the DNA that we come up with, it's unique, but it's a continuation of the previous DNAs. So unique and, continuity. Very interesting. And if we grasp this teachings, the Buddha says that, every human being is a unique being. Two human beings are not the same. Two what is called the twins even are not the same. Every human being is unique. The uniqueness means, well, are different. There cannot be same individuals. But are they different also? So what is it? Are they same or are they different? So the answer lies in what is called the process or the change or the paticca, that this leads to that. So there is no sankraman, but there is patisandhi, which means this thing leading to that. Some of the monks try to give example that when we hit a billboard ball, a ball on the billboard, then it hits another ball, transferring the energy of this ball to that ball. Isn't it? These are just examples to make us understand, how the things are, because there is no theory, because there cannot be a theory of rebirth, because there is no soul. Isn't it? If the existence of something permanent can be found, that, but as Baba Ambedkar has shown throughout his book, that it's not possible to hold on to the view that there is soul. And the Buddha himself, asked us, challenged us, all of us, to look into your existence and find something concrete. We cannot. The body, the sensations, the perceptions, the way mind operates, the consciousness itself, it's all changes all the time. So this example of a candle lighting another candle, we have to now come up with the better examples, isn't it? In order to show that, how they were the best examples of that time, and they still communicate a lot, isn't it? But we have to look into various domains to create sort of the tools for teaching this very profound truth that the Buddha found, that there is no soul. So let me read this again. Milind, king of Bactria, asked Nagasen, did the Buddha believe in rebirth? So the transmigration is not necessary here, okay? His reply was yes. Is this not a contradiction? Nagasen replied, no. Can there be rebirth without the soul? Nagasen said, oh, of course, yes, there can be. Explain how it can be. The king said, where there is no transmigration, Nagasen, can there be rebirth? Yes, there can be, but how can that be? Give me an illustration. Suppose a man, O king, were to light a lamp from another lamp, can it be said that the one transmigrates from or to the other? Certainly not. Just so, great king, is rebirth without transmigration. Give me a further illustration. Now, this is the further illustration that is asked by Milinda, and that's how how Nagasen answers it. Do you recollect, great king, having learned when you were a boy some words or other from your teacher? Yes, I recollect that. Well, then, did that verse transmigrate from your teacher? Certainly not. Just so, great king, is rebirth without transmigration. Very good, Nagasena. The king said, is there such a thing, Nagasena, as the soul? In the highest sense, O king, there is no such thing. Very good, Nagasena. Two things I thought I would talk to about you today about this particular issue of soul, because the humanity all the time, everywhere, the philosophers and all, they were trying to find something concrete, something certain in the world, because uncertainty is disturbing. The change is disturbing. The change, if we do not accept it, causes us to suffer, isn't it? But accepting the change is a way towards freedom, and to understand that everything can be transformed. And the change, doctrine of change, gives us a hope. But at the same time, it can despair us, because there is how the quest for certainty, as the philosopher called, the quest for something which is not going to die, because we all fear death, and therefore we try to find out some kind of something in us that will never die. But the insight of the Buddha was this, that there is no self, and if we the rest of the Buddhism is just about it, to understand the reality that there is no self, there is no soul. And as I have talked in the previous classes, the Buddha used very beautiful three words: asati na paritasati. Why do we lament or fear something which doesn't exist? Isn't it? But we take it all the way granted. So it's not very easy. It's not black and white when we talk about soul and no soul, because we all are looking for some stability. In the medical terminology, we call it homeostasis, some kind of a constancy, some kind of a stability, isn't it? We always try to maintain stability. Our perceptions are stabilized. Even if the whole world is changing, we get an impression that it's constant. It doesn't change, because some kind of a homeostasis is required. If the human species or any species has to survive. But if we form a very neurotic, concrete idea around that, says that there is something that never changes, then it's ultimately is the cause of suffering, isn't it? So the Buddha very deeply realized that there is no self. So the theory of no soul is not a theory. It's an experience of the Buddha. It's an experience that we can all have. That's why we have these practices by which we realize the impermanence of our bodies, impermanence of the rise and fall of bodies, the rise and fall of our feelings, the rise and fall of our mind, the rise and fall of everything around us. And the world cannot be otherwise. It has to be this way. So when we realize this truth of impermanence, then we begin to understand the truth of no self. And when we understand, as it is, not some kind of a philosophical speculation, not some kind of a reflection, but directly through our experiences, when we realize that there is nothing called myself, then that's how we free ourselves from everything, from life, from worries, from any lamentation. So the doctrine of the what is called anatta is not a philosophy. It is not a reflection of the Buddha. Of course, the Buddha explained it through the words and through various images and various examples. The Buddha, of course, did it, but that's the verbalization of something that Buddha deeply experienced within himself. Okay, so that verbalization of something that the Buddha experienced, we all need to find a way to experience that, isn't it? And that's what the Buddhism is different from a lot of philosophizing. The Buddha talks about experiencing things directly, isn't it? So if there is a soul, can we experience it directly? How can we experience something that never changes? That's a paradox. Because to experience something, the change is the essence. Without change, we cannot explain something, express anything, isn't it? So what I'm going to do today is going to stop here. I thought we will cover the next chapter, but because it has a different flavor altogether, I thought I should stop here, and maybe we can talk about the transmigration, we can talk about ahimsa, we can talk about rebirth and karma, for next 20-30 minutes, so that you all have the questions and answers clarified for you. So I just want to take a call. Should we just stop here, and then in the next class we will go for the section number 5, or should we go for the section number 5? Any thoughts on this? Hello.
Here again, there is similarity of the word rebirth. In Pratitya Samutpad also there is word Jati, Jara, Marana, Janma. So people, we have started using the word Punarbhava, means arising again and again. So people confuse it with rebirth, and they again go to say that it is a Punarjanma, rebirth, like that. So there is different, there is confusion in using this word rebirth here in Pratitya Samutpad and this rebirth after death.
Okay. Good. Anybody has a similar question, or should I go for discussing Madam's question? So what?
Right. Yeah. Sorry.
Hello. Yes, Pankaj bhai.
Yeah. This few days before we attended in Sri Lankan Vihar some things. Understanding in the Sri Lankan is that there is rebirth, there is transmigration. So that sector is still very strongly addressing this.
Yes.
And the question is argumentative. So with that in mind, also we will just discuss something on this.
Okay, so let's go because on discussing this, because I think it's important, because the traditional Buddhist countries, all of them believe in the theory of transmigration. Okay, all of them believe in the theory of no self. And I'm sure that there is no clear exposition given by anybody. Okay, so let's understand it from a traditional point of view, that as to how the rebirth is explained. Okay, so as Tai was explaining Paticca Samutpad, so there are 12 links of Paticca Samutpad. Okay, it starts with avidya, paccaya, sankhara. So the avidya conditions sankhara. Okay, so you see this there are linkages in terms of causes and conditions. So there are causes and there are conditions. Okay, now there are general causes and conditions, and there are particular causes and conditions. Please bear this in mind, that there are general causes of condition and there are particular causes of condition. So when the Buddha explained Paticca Samutpad in terms of the emergence of dukkha, it's a particular case of understanding the Paticca Samutpad. Right? Like the formulation goes, avidya paccaya sankhara, sankhara paccaya vijnanam, vijnanam paccaya namarupam, namarupam paccaya sadayatan, sadayatan paccaya vedana, vedana paccaya tanna, tanna paccaya bhav, bhav paccaya upadan, upadan paccaya jati. So you see this links, isn't it? If we understand the causes and conditions, so based on the cause, this particular effect, this is one way, and then there are conditions. So without causes and conditions coming together, the things cannot arise. Okay, so this is a general formulation. Let's apply it here. So the arising of the human being is not explained in this formulation of Paticca Samutpad, which people wrongly apply it generally. It's explained as a psychological process. Okay, so in the meditative mode, we begin to see how this psychological process happens. And it's very difficult to see these psychological processes happening in when our minds are scattered, because in the Million Prashna, that the example that is given is very interesting, that when a person is falling from the tree and trying to count the leaves, that's how it's very difficult, that's how difficult it is to experience this, the links of Paticca Samutpada, or to explain, to experience Rupa, Vedana, Sadhana, Sankhara separately. Very difficult, because they happen so fast that, we cannot perceive them directly unless we find some way to stabilize our mind, to make our minds more concentrated. Okay, and that's what Baba Ambedkar says, that the purpose of the Buddhist Samadhi, I have to, there is one beautiful one page written by Baba Ambedkar. I had found it. So there Baba says that, the 1 point full concentration, attending that fully is that's how you make your mind more concentrated, ekagra. And you transcend the world of the reflective thinking, and you come in contact with what is called the very deep sort of a mind, very, very concentrated mind. And in the very concentrated, very still and quiet mind, you can see these processes, as you can say, just to give an example, in a slow motion. Okay. So these processes are happening within us all the time, but we don't directly experience them, because we have to train our minds to stabilize, to go deeper. So this way of explaining Paticca Samutpada, and there are many ways by which the Buddha has explained Paticca Samutpada, to the extent that the Buddha has used this teachings of Paticca Samutpada to explain how the conflict arises in the society. But this 12 links of Paticca Samutpada, when we understand it in the psychological terms. So what is jati here? So jati is the recurrence of something again and again, ponobhava. And in the second noble truth, the Buddha has explained it very beautifully, ponobhavika. What is trishna? Yayang tanna ponobhavika nandi raga sahagata tatra tatra bhindini seyatidang kamatanna bhavatanna vivatanna. So tanna is like this. The tanna gets, happens again and again. Ponobhavika. Yayang tanna ponobhavika. Nandi raga sahagata. It always endowed with pleasure, seeking some kind of a pleasure in the world. Tatra tatra bhindini. It takes delight here, it takes delight there. And the 3 types of Krishna, Kamatanna, Bhavatanna, Vibhavatanna. So what Buddha has explained here in the psychological terms is the emergence of the craving. And we can all experience that when when we crave for something, when we are thirsting. Tanna is like a thirst. So when we are thirsty, we become so much, what is called, psychologically wanting it so much that, we crave for it. And when that craving is sorted out for the moment, then there is a period of quiescence, and then again we crave for it. Ponobhavika. So for example, if somebody likes ice cream, they crave for it. They can go anywhere to eat or whatever. And when their thirst is satisfied, that's okay. Quiescence, the period of quiescence, and again the desire comes into being. This is called the ponobhava. So Buddha explained very beautifully the punurbhava, even not punarjanma, the punarbhava of Trishna. Very plain, very simple. There is nothing to confuse here. Okay. Don't apply these things to explaining the world around. It's a beautiful psychological process that we can all understand. So here, jati doesn't mean physical birth. Here, the word jati doesn't mean spiritual birth. It's a psychological process of craving for pleasure again and again, everywhere, here and there. Now, is this clear to you? Up to this point, is this clear to you all?
Yes, sir.
Alka madam, is this clear to you up to this point? Umesh?
Yes.
Pankaj bhai?
Yes, bhai.
Ji
Yes.
sir, ji sir.
So you should understand Punarbhava. It is not Punarjanma. Punarbhava of what? Trishna. Okay. So we all have this Punarbhava happening all the time. All is going under this cycle. Okay. And we have, why this craving is there? Why Tanna is there? Then we have to again look at the cycle of Paticca. So, first Pachaya Vedana. So, Sadayatan. Sadayatan means our 6 bases of experience. What are the 6 bases of experience? What are the 6 bases of experience? The eyes, ears, nose,
Doors. Yeah.
all this.
Senses.
Okay, Sadayatan. These are the basis of our experience. Okay, Sadayatan, because there are Sadayatan, there will be contact. First, right? Whenever there is a contact, there will be Vedana. Vedana means sensation, emotion. Whenever there is a Vedana, if the Vedana is pleasant Vedana, then we crave for that. If it is unpleasant, we want to push it away. If it is neither pleasant nor unpleasant, then we just accept it as a stupid person. Stupidity. So understand the 3 poisons of mind. One is Raga, means also Lobha, means craving after some object. Dvesha means, to destroy that object which is causing us unpleasantness. And Moha means Avidya, which means accepting everything, anything, without examining it, without bringing the light of mindfulness to it. So please understand this cycle again, that senses, contact, impression, sensual impressions, Vedana. Vedana, 3 types of Vedana. Pleasant, unpleasant, and neither pleasant nor unpleasant. Depending on the Vedana, our mind either craves for it or wants to destroy it or, become stupid. Raga, Dvesa, Moha. Vedana Pachya what? Tanna. So Tanna doesn't mean only sensual craving, but it also means in the deep down, the Vibhav Tanna, Bhava Tanna, Vibhav Tanna, to be and not to be. The craving to be and craving not to be. We can see it on a psychological level when we cultivate a little bit of meditation. So you see that, when we have a chance to break the cycle. We have a chance to break this cycle here and now. On the level of Sadayatan, if we cultivate our mind in such a way that everything is just halted at the 6 doors. So the Buddha says, in seeing, there is only seeing, there is no seer. In hearing, there is only hearing. In thinking, there is only thinking. There is no thinker, there is no seer, there is no hearer. There is nobody who is testing it. Only testing is happening. And all that is these 5 senses, whatever they bring, they are conceptualized by the mind, the 5th sense. And therefore, the mind gives rise to what is called the sadhya, the concepts, the conceptions like, the words as we use, the cow, we call it cow. But whether that object is a cow or whether the cow experienced by 2 of the human beings the same. Isn't it? So in the psychological level, it's called abstraction. Isn't it? When we talk about a tree, we are talking about tree in abstraction. It's not, there is no tree that corresponds to our word tree, because all the trees are different. So when we say human being, this is the way of generalizing what cannot be generalized, because every human being is particular. But for the sake of convenience, for the sake of language, for the sake of communication, we use the word man or human being like that. So this conceptualization in Buddhism, in Buddhist terminology, is called prapancha, mental proliferation. So what we do when we meditate, we try to reduce down this mental proliferation. We try to, cut our sensual contact with the sense object, because they create inflow. They create our minds to go haywire. So what we do, that's why, the Buddhist meditation practice is very simple. Just sit with yourself. Everything will settle down. Because naturally our minds have a tendency to settle down. But the point is, we have to sit. We have to be aware of the, of our breathing. We have to find the object where we can focus all our attentions. And when we do that, our contact with the external world, as it were, is severed. Then our mind becomes more concentrated, and we can actually begin to see this process happening. The process of sadhana and the process of how the raga, dvesha, and moha comes into being. We begin to see that how the different mental objects are formed within. Like the jealousy, or like miserliness, the growth, hatred, all that is there, that is there in our consciousness. There's all. So you see, it's very beautiful. If we reduce it from this craving for something eternal, craving for certainty, and look at this particular Paticca as a psychological process, as a meditative process, then we begin to see that how deeply it goes, how it becomes the way for us to liberate ourselves from the suffering. Because if we begin to understand this process, then we know that where the suffering can stop. Is my voice clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Now, yes. Yeah, in between it was troublesome.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
because my internet is on cell phone. That's why. So do you follow the argument so far?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Here,
but
here we,
Vedna is first process of process of mental phenomena.
No.
And
This
it has
all is mental phenomena. Even the conceptualization of sankhara is a mental process. Sankhara is a mental process. Okay,
Yeah,
sankhara means building together. And it's not like A leads to B, B leads to C. It's not that okay. This as a condition, that is.
But Vedna means sensations, sanya, sankhara, and then Vijnan, final mental reaction, that is feeling pleasurable, unpleasurable.
Yes.
So feeling to appear, so it has to go through these four processes. Vedna, sanya, sankhara,
Not necessarily, madam. You can stop the process at Vedna level.
Okay, yeah, by
stop
training of mind.
Yes, by training of mind, you can actually stop it at Vedna level, at Tanna level. Two levels where you can stop it. Actually, you can stop it at any level.
Okay, how?
Even at the level of Sadayatan, if we train your senses to have control, isn't it? Then you don't get your senses doesn't let you go carry, they don't let you go haywire and let you carry away everywhere. Isn't it? That's why Buddha says that your body is craving for sparsha, touch.
Yes.
So how do you train your body from not indulging into touch? Because our body wants to indulge into touch. Our mind is conditioned to think. So how not to think? How not to conceptualize? How not fall prey to the erratic thoughts? And our speech always wants to, we always want to speak. So how to restrain our speech? Okay. So the Indriya Samvar, it's called Indriya Samvar. At the level of Indriya, you train your mind in such a way that your Indriya, your Sadayatan themselves, you understand. Okay, let me explain you. See, it's called the sea of senses. So for example, when we look at the world, it's like a ocean. We see far distances. As I'm sitting in my room, I can see very far, all the way up to 4 or 5 kilometers from here. Okay. There are some solid objects. There are some birds which are moving. Isn't it? So you understand the sense of eye, that the sense of eye is like the ocean of seeing, and the objects emerge there and they condition you. So what Buddha says that you don't indulge into what you see. You don't indulge into what you hear. You don't indulge into what you taste. Okay, bring your mindfulness to that. So when you bring the mindfulness to the sense door, what happens?
We see the things as it is.
Yes, as emerging and falling away, as not part of you. Okay, so basically, you see, these beautiful frameworks are explained by the Buddha as a devices for us to enlighten, as devices for us to be free. What we have done, we have made them into philosophical doctrines, and then we go on talking about the words and concepts and like that, and we get lost. That is what is happening in the Buddhist world, isn't it? So what we have to do, we have to come back to the original intention of these teachings, is to free the mind, is to free ourselves from the dukkha. So, actually you can begin to see how you can see the dukkha emerging in your experiences. You can also see how dukkha, perishes. You also see why dukkha arises, and you can also see how dukkha can be ended. So, for example, at the level of avidya, if you begin to see everything as impermanent, then you won't hold on to your sankhara. You won't hold on to your vijnana. It's very deep. If we bring this kind of a therapeutic attitude to understanding the teachings of the Buddha, then it's very easy. So we began with Alka Madam's question as to the jati there, whether it's birth. So some of the people have argued that it's the birth of the past, present, and future. But there are some Buddhist teachers who have said that no, it's about the psychological process that is happening right here, right now.
Yes, present moment of life.
Exactly, and that's where you can end the suffering.
Yes.
So a lot of the thinking that was happening at the psychological level, when they were written, when they were philosophized, they went away from it. That's why the Buddha says practice.
So can we say it in this way? Transformation plus reformation.
Yes,
that equates the transmigration.
No.
And that transformation is an effect.
No, actually, we have to
And
stop. We
the
have to stop talking
reformation.
about, yes, please.
And the reformation that one have means taken in the present moment is the state.
What
and what?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to get it as, stop thinking in terms of the this birth and the next birth after death.
Yeah, I'm not bringing the birth and rebirth in this context.
Yes.
I'm just bringing the transformation, that change that you are talking about.
Yes.
That
So that's
every
happening.
moment, everything is going.
Yes.
Everything is going pain, and the cycle that you are taught, that's senses, and then contact, then the impression, then Vedana, and all through all these cycles, it's kind of a ritual that we are following to get free from and rid of the pain. Is that so?
See, because we don't understand this, we suffer again and again. If we understand the process of how suffering comes into being, then we don't suffer. So this path that I'm talking about has to be realized within ourselves. Okay.
Yeah.
So we
Totally
have to, but so the mindfulness is a key, because by which we know that how we behave all the time. What are the dominant patterns of our being? So they are different from different beings. Some people can be very sensuous. Some people can be very, full of hatred. All different, there is a spectrum of personalities, right? Right, Umesh bhai? Hello?
Yes.
So there is a spectrum personality. Alka madam is different from me. Her mental being is different from me. Pankaj is different from me, we are all different from each other. We have certain dominant things which I might be having, which, you might not be having. Isn't it? So we have to see within our experiences, these are all patterns that forms what we call our personality, human personality, and how we work on it.
Just
So
it's a game
Vipassana,
of remembering the things.
Yeah, that's why
It's
remembering sati is also for remembering.
yeah, it's only the game of remembering the stages that we have crossed, means that
Exactly.
we have transformed or that we have formed, and the thing that we are collecting the remembrance to our after death also. Only that is troubling us.
Yes.
Is it so or not?
After life is problematic for all the culture. All the culture from Greece to Chinese and everybody is concerned about afterlife because we don't want to die.
Yeah, that's
We
good.
don't want to die. Nobody wants to die. Even if you are ensured that there will be Swarga, even then you don't want to die.
Yes.
If I tell you that there is a heaven, die now. You will say, hell with the heaven. I don't want to go there. I don't want to die.
Yeah. True.
Okay. So this
Yeah.
this craving for life is so deeply ingrained in all of us. That's why the Buddha is called Jivana Mukta. They don't crave for life. Like people like Baba Samad, they don't crave for life.
Yeah. Be mindful at the moment.
Right? So you see, it's a very deeply psychological sort of a game that we don't want to die, and then we try to create everything based on that. It's not only here. After life, what happens after death has been a question that has been philosophized, made into religion. All the religions. You look at Bible, or you look at Quran, or you look at the text of the religions. They talk about afterlife.
Yes, there is also saying also in African proverbs that Bible people came and asked us to fold your hands and pray, and then they have exchanged. When they opened their eyes, they were having the Bible and the land with them. If no such things will be there, then how the progressive world will be there? How the rational thinking will develop, and how for the comfort the science and technology will develop?
So I think, Pankaj, by coming back to the question that this things, this psychological dimension has also encouraged, and has gone into Buddhist countries, and they talk about birth after birth, and millions of billions of birth, and so on and so forth. And the question is how that is possible. How would the science explain it, or how even the basic Buddhist teaching will explain it? So we have to be able to explain these beliefs in terms of how they do not form the crux of Buddhism. The goal of Buddhism is to attain nirvana, means to end of the dukkha, isn't it? And what is nirvana? Nirvana is nothing but practicing the noble eightfold path. So you see, in a way, Baba Ambedkar has made things so easily accessible to us. And that's the beauty of Baba Sahib. That's how what I like about Baba Ambedkar, that when we study him, Buddhism immediately becomes, available to us. It doesn't become the kind of, theorization so much. It becomes like, how we can bring it into being in our own lives, isn't it? So the how suffering comes into being, how the social suffering comes into being, and all that can be explained very beautifully, and it doesn't need to have the theory of soul for it. So if you are still thinking that whether you are going to take a rebirth, ask question: rebirth of what in me? The same eyes, the same body, the same hair? Is it possible? Or my mind is going to reborn? Then what is mind? If mind is feeling, if mind is sadhya, if mind is sankhara, then what is it going to get reborn? You see, you can begin to see, if you reflect, if you meditate on this, the futility of these questions. So Pankaj Bhai, the way they explain it like this, they say that when you die, there is a chitta called Pati Sandhati Chitta. So from this life to that life, there is a connecting point.
Yes.
Okay, so they call it Pati Sandhi Chitta, they call it Gandhabba, means something which is ready to go, Gandhabba. And there are Chuti Chitta, they call it Chuti Chitta, or the death consciousness, and so on and so forth. But this way of presentation in the Abhidhamma has become so much problem in the Buddhist philosophy that the new philosophy has come into being. Okay, but that's about philosophical discussion. But my particular thing is that let's practice it. Instead of the speculative question of what happens at the death, then there is this final moment of the death, and that chitta is there, where that chitta is called the death consciousness, Chuti Chitta. In Tibetan, they call it Bardo, or the transition consciousness between death and birth, and so on and so forth. Then they talk about 6 Bardos and all, isn't it? So let that it be. We are not concerned much about it. If they believe in it.
Well said.
On a lighter note, Ghalib has very well said. जन्नत किसने देखी है गालिब, दिल बहलाने को ख्याल अच्छा है.
Exactly. These are all speculative, and it can be answered at the convenience of individual.
Yes, it can be answered the way you want to answer it. So, but
Yes.
as a Buddhist, as a follower of the Buddha, our way is to seek nirvana. For these traditional countries, they have made nirvana into such an abstraction that people say that you cannot experience nirvana. And if you cannot experience nirvana, then what is the use of practicing it? Practicing the Dharma.
True.
Isn't it? Baba Sahib says very simply that what is nirvana? Nirvana is when you reduce down your raga, dvesha and moha. Isn't it? And we can experience it. When our minds are full of love, what happens? Sometimes our minds are very clear and we have clarity. What happens?
We are more kind, we are more compassionate.
Isn't
Compassion
it?
is there.
So why not cultivate positive things instead of looking at what is there?
Yes, that is.
And Baba Sahib said, what is nirvana is nothing but a noble eightfold path. The moment you try practicing noble eightfold path, you begin to experience nirvana. Nirvana is not some kind of a cosmic stage up there that you attain and you become something big. Not like that. The beauty of the Buddha is that Buddha has said that you can all experience. Isn't it? There are moments of awakening for all of us. It is not that it's only available to particular human beings. There are moments of awareness, awakening. When somebody close to us die, we begin to see the way it is. Our minds are automatically begin to see, but then we lose it. Sometimes
very true, sir. Every moment we get reformed, we get rebirth.
Yes. Like for example, death. We never think that the death will come to us. Has anybody thought that they will die one day? Only theoretically. But do you accept it as a reality? That it can happen next moment?
True.
So to give training to the mind, Baba Sahib has explained in Eightfold Path, the Samyak Samadhi. 3 elements are there. Samma Vyayamu, Samma Sati, and Samma Samadhi.
Yes.
So all the battle is to get rid of the blindfoldedness that the Brahminical culture has imposed on the society or on the humankind, and that is confined to this country only. Otherwise, the rest of the people are much happier. Their happier index is much more than us.
But they have their own categorization of dukkha. They have their own patterns of dukkha.
Yeah, they have tagged the karma theory in that. No, okay, if you do the bad things here and then after that you have to do such and some means they just putting so much blind faith in the people that they have to blindly follow them.
That is the cruelest of the theory.
Yeah.
Cruel theory. That if you do bad here, then in the next karma,
And Buddhism is cutting those tags. And Buddhism is cutting those tags.
You are right.
But because of ignorance, there is suffering. We
Yes.
cannot say that they are happier than us.
Yes. Now,
Yes, that's the reason that we have to follow mindfulness.
Yes,
and
yes.
that is the awakening.
Yes. So what I'm trying to get it at here now is, when we look at study the Buddha and his Dhamma, we study the Buddha and his Dhamma in a regular way. We study it all the time. We read it all the time. It is not that once our class is over that we have understood it. That's why I urge you all to go back to Buddha and his Dhamma again and again. Make it reading the Buddha and his Dhamma, studying the Buddha and his Dhamma should be our way of life, isn't it? So the more understanding of Baba Sahib Ambedkar can be understood, and that's how we understand the Buddha, isn't it? And when we have this lot of clarity, the more clarity we have, the more easy it becomes to practice. And when you approach the Buddha's teachings or Tripitaka from after studying rigorously this and the Pali text or whatever text, then it begins to give you, if everything starts falling in place, all the teaching starts falling in place. So my urge to you all is, please keep on reading, keep on reflecting, keep on thinking, keep on writing, keep on explaining, isn't it? Please explain the Buddha and Dhamma to others. They will have a lot of doubts about it, because they have a very traditional image of a so-called spiritual person, that they should have the garb of a Mahatma, or they should wear a particular cloth and like that. It's a very stereotype image of a free man. If we study Baba Sahib Ambedkar, who can be more freer than him? Who can be more compassionate than him? Who can be more wiser than him? Isn't it? If wearing certain clothes or certain garb, or if that is the criteria, I think that's not the Buddhism. The Buddha has said, by wearing something, you don't become, your mind is not purified. Of course, it might need for the survival of something traditional or something institutional, but it doesn't mean anything when it comes to experiencing the truth. It's a training of mind. It's a way to be able to focus all your energies together, bringing all your mind together, and that needs tremendous efforts. Baba Sahib Ambedkar could do it. He can bring all his mind together. He could concentrate deeply, more than we can imagine, the way he could concentrate on anything. So if you are trying to concentrate on something, doing something good, it's also a form of meditation. That's how you collect your all energies together. So anyway, we can go on talking about this, but please read these sections again and again and clarify for yourself. Talk in this thing. I would recommend all of you, the best way to understand something is to teach. So I would request all of you, wherever possible, you start teaching the Buddha and his Dhamma. Don't worry. You will learn. Teach, share.
Sure.
So with this, yes, Somesh bhai.
Yeah, very true, sir.
So
We have to share our thoughts and discuss, and in discussions we understand more.
So you see, now we will be finishing 1 year of our studies, and I reckon that most of you are very comfortable in these things, and next 200 pages will be through Buddha and his Dhamma. But if you do not inculcate into yourself the practice of reading the Buddha's Dhamma, teaching the Buddha's Dhamma, reading it time to time, reflecting on it from time to time, then, we cannot have that culture of based on the Buddha's Dhamma. And we want that, because without it, all our different things are impossible to attain. So my request to you all is to please carry on with this process. Like Alka ma'am can explain, all of you can explain. All of you are now having reading for a long time, studying for a long time. Please go on and share whatever is your understanding, maybe online, offline, whatever mode, doesn't matter. But just go and share.
Yes. True.
Just go and share. Form the groups in your localities, or in your colonies, or wherever flat system. Get the people together, sit for 20 minutes meditation, read Buddhism, think through things. There's a beautiful process. So all said and done, we are at the end of a class, and thank you so much for joining, and see you in the next class. Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jai Bhim.
Jai Bhim, Jai Bhim.
Thank you everyone. Thank you, Jai Bhim.